Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Sin Permiso, a Latina lifestyle podcast. Today I have another exciting guest, Lourdes Genao. She is the author, a co-author with myself in the book Breaking the Glass Ceiling. Lourdes has a master's in business. Lourdes has a phenomenal job, which, fun fact, is actually the job that I wanted to do when I was young and I went to school for. But we were going to hear all about Lourdes' money mindset today. Thank you, Lourdes, for joining us in Sin Permiso today.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
So let's dig right into it. Lourdes, tell us where you grew up. Were you born here? Did you immigrate? Tell us a little bit about how you got here, what your story is, and let us know your money mindset. What did you learn from your parents about that, and what did you learn on your own?
Okay. So I was born in Dominican Republic. I'm from what they call the Heart City, the middle of the country. And I migrated to Nashua, New Hampshire at 11 years old. And so that was a shock. My mother always was very gung-ho about education. And so I came in knowing no English. I learned English in a year and went through and got my educations. And I now live in Burlington. So I've joined the Massachusetts crowd.
You're a masshole.
I'm a masshole. But my roots are in New Hampshire. I'm very grateful for the opportunities. And money mindset. So I am the daughter of a widow. My father passed away when I was just 5 years old. And so my mother dedicated herself to my brother and I from that time on. And, everybody, I think a lot of people know a single mom or know what it's like to be a single mom. And she figured it out my whole life. So I actually thought that I was like middle class, because I never was lacking anything. I had all the celebrations were done. My mother always cooked meals, wonderful meals for us. But she was always careful. I remember sitting in the bottom of the racks of Bradley's. I don't know if anybody knows.
I remember
Bradley's. My mom would always shop and get her whole thing was, what's the best deal I can get? So that we can all be dressed, we can all wear nice things, but we need to get a deal. So I would sit at the bottom and she would shop for hours. But it was always like, I got this, look at the deal I got. So that's how I got like my hunger for like the deal, the thrill of the deal, right? And I just always saw her be careful with money. And it was interesting, she's from a larger family. And there's, another 6 brothers and sisters, and everybody has a different money personality. So I always saw a range. I have uncles and aunts who are spenders. I mean, big. If something's gonna be done, it's gonna be huge. If they're gonna do a party, there's gonna be food. If it's for 10 people, we're gonna have food for 50, just in case, right? And so I saw that range my whole life, but I always followed my mom. Save it. Try to be prudent when you spend it on the right things. And up until almost 2 years ago, which is not very long, I was a big saver. And I realized in this country, you can't just save.
It's not enough.
It's not enough. And so when I looked at my financial situation and my future, I realized, and my financial advisor said, you could put every dollar you make, and it will still not meet the goals, which are to help your daughters in the future.
And inflation and money is just losing value every day.
So for a very long time, my cash just sat.
Just sat in the bank.
Just sat. The bank could be on this podcast and tell you how well they've done with my money, because I did nothing with it. So I figured it out. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I recommend. It really opened my eyes. And I finally realized, okay, I need to figure out how to make this money work. And I also realized it's not about how much I made. It's about what I did with what I made, right? So the savings part that I was always taught is still very important, because you don't want to spend above your means. You want to live below your means.
Live below your means. Number 3, always live below your means.
Live below your means, but whatever money you get, make the money work, because hard times always come. Right? And there's always a future. And at the end of the day, I think we all have our whys, and our whys require us to do that.
Definitely. And real estate and, business does fluctuate, like you just said. It goes up, it goes down. You always have to be ready for the next recession. But what I find that's really curious about what you're saying is you learn the thrill of the hunt, the deals from your mom, and then fast forward, you have a master's degree in Bentley. Let's talk about what you do for work.
Okay. So this
whatever you can talk about, because I know you have certain privacy standards.
Yes, of course. So I didn't know what I do for work was an actual career. I just ran into it accidentally. I always knew I wanted to work someplace where it was giving back to the community. So whatever I was doing, it couldn't just be for the money. And then I always like a dynamic environment. I love change and I love adjusting. It just keeps me going. So those were like my requirements. And then I was presented with this opportunity. And, I love what I do. So now I get to combine, that like...
thrill of the hunt.
That thrill of the deal. I remember when I was presented with the job, they were like, would you consider this job? And I go, well, I do that job for free. So if you're going to pay me for that, that's a bonus. So, that was how I ended up in that position. And it's been over 18 years, and I've, just... haven't left.
So you're a buyer, and you get to go out to these communities in other countries and see, how as a community, as a village, they produce an article, they produce this item, call it this cup, and then you say, I want to buy as many of these as I can.
Yes. So I kind of, the way I see myself is I'm a representative of the customer here in the US, right? And so I'm the eyes and ears for the girl who didn't go on that trip, but I hope she does go on that trip, because traveling enhances your life in so many ways. So that's one of the things I recommend to anyone. Get out somewhere, anywhere.
Don't be shy, don't be timid, don't think it's not for me. Oh, I'd love to do what you do, Peggy. And I think to myself, I don't actually tell them, well, why don't you?
Yeah.
Oh, I could never. Yes, you can. Go, buy the damn ticket and get the hell out of here.
Absolutely. And it's so funny because you're afraid, well, what happened when I get there? Oh, it's just me.
Is it dangerous?
Yeah, and you find the most wonderful people to support you. So I get to be the eyes and ears, and I get to bring in a little bit of my love for data. I'm also a bit of a geek, so I love data. I love converting what data means for everyday life, right? So we all see in our respective fields numbers. What do the numbers mean? What can I do with that information? And then I get to layer in fashion. So it's like the best of all worlds, I guess. So I go, I pick, this looks great. What's going to make her excited, right? I go into then that formula and
what's
work backwards.
Trending? What's trending? So you set the trends, basically. This is phenomenal. It's super exciting to know that. Yeah. So I had the pleasure of being with you in this book, Breaking the Glass Ceiling.
Yes.
She rises 21 powerful Latinas in this book. Your chapter is Island Dreams with Global...
Island Roots with Global Dreams.
Island Roots with Global Dreams.
Yes.
And you talk a little... What I found interesting in your chapter was you talked about how you were a little girl. And all of us, we do feel like the ugly duckling when we're young. And many of us don't realize what beautiful swans that we turn into. So I found that so beautiful. And also it resounds with a lot of young women today and Latina women who find themselves to be a little different. So, if you want to just condense quick story on that.
So that's a little bit of the story of, it's almost like the package that we all are. Every single one of us is a brand. And sometimes if we think that if the brand thinks it's ugly and it's not worth much, then people are going to treat you as such. So I came from I think the beauty standards, no matter where you go, are different in different parts of the world.
Yes, exactly.
So I grew up on an island where Anglo-Saxon features are much more appreciated than my features. So I grew up with that ingrained. You've got these skinny legs and they're super long and that's so awkward and your hair should be softer. And so all of these things. And I'm thinking, oh, I know I'm not the best looking, girl, but I am smart. And so then I get to the US and that's the mindset I have. And then all of a sudden they're like, wow, you're so gorgeous. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm also smart.
You're so gorgeous. Didn't you win a beauty pageant?
I was a model at one point and I was in a beauty pageant. Yes. And at that point I realized my brain has more power than my looks. And I can always work with the looks. You can always address looks. But what's in your brain, what your brain brings to the table, is not replaceable. It is not replaceable, and it's there much longer than beauty.
I always say a pretty face can only get you so far, and it can bring you to certain places, but then it's how you position yourself, what you say and who you know, and how you're poised that'll get you there. I know you also had a story about, the boardroom and a meeting with a client that your company had been trying to, date for so long, and you were the one that was able to get this meeting?
Yeah, so I think as part of the looks, right, I've understood that whenever I walk into a room, I'm not necessarily the highest common denominator. In fact, many times I'm the lowest common denominator. So it is not expected that I'm the decision maker or that I have the big bag or that, it just, maybe I'm an assistant, maybe I'm a nice face, maybe a pretty face. And so
you're holding his briefcase.
Holding the briefcase, keeping the numbers, organizing
his water bottle,
everything. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, I showed up. I had a supportive boss with me. And so we're having the conversation, and it's, happens to be also, there were no other females there. There were no other, it was like 8 against just me. And I've learned to let that be, because sometimes helping people think a certain way gets me my goal. And at the end of the day, it's about the goal, not about my ego. So the less you put your ego aside, the more likely you are to hit a goal. So what's 100%. More important is the way I always say to people. And so, so we had a moment in that meeting, and the president is there, and he's like, so who's gonna make the decision? And he looks over, and the male with me goes, oh, she's the decision maker. I'm just here to hold her bag. And so they were all, they're like, oh, so we've been here for 45 minutes thinking you're the one.
Talking to him.
Yes. And I'm very quietly just, nodding my head, taking all the information, and sometimes whispering to him, ask this, say that. And but at the end of the day, it was on me. So it was a very refreshing moment, and they happen, right? They happen all the time.
I love this combination that you have where, like we just said, it's not just beauty, it's brains. And, you lived through it. You inspired through this book with your chapter. You are part of this vehicle that we have that we love, that inspires young women, that they can look in the mirror and realize no matter what they look like, they don't look like the American, white blonde girl, that they have their own style, that they have their own sazon, that we're Latina, that we're different. And you know what? Right now, 48% of small businesses are owned by women, right? And the statistics are growing for Latina women. So again, you're another example of that. To me, that's amazing. And I love to highlight that even though, we may have learned from our parents, like you said, savings, you were able to figure out, it's not about savings, it's about using the money, right, to grow, because we're not taught this, right? Our money's mindset, we have to come here and figure it out ourselves. Mm-hmm. But Lourdes, if you could give, a young Latina a couple different, let's say 3 pieces of advice, I'd love to hear what they would be.
So as you talk about, women in business and young Latinas, and one of the things I talk about in the book is asking a question or making a request, how far that got me. One of the things that is my strength is that influencing and negotiating are never ending, but they end when we end it within ourselves. So whenever I find a lot of people who say, I would rather, eat dirt than ask for a discount at a store.
Unbelievable.
I would rather, this is just, or we've done the best. I'll tell you a story of just ask. I was in Dominican Republic at a resort. I found this swing, with the one with the sticks and the rope. And I decided to put my flip-flops aside. I had just bought them. And they're from a brand I'm not going to mention. And I love them because they were great. But I put them aside, and I put them on one side, and I put my bag on the other side. I got on the swing, and I'm like, I'll grab them. I only grabbed my bag. 3 hours later, I'm like, oh my God, my flip-flops. Now the flip-flops were in a tree trunk, but the water comes in and pushes everything out. And I go, oh my God, let me go find them. And so I have somebody with me, a friend of mine. We get there, they're not there. And I'm like,
and she's like, ya olvídate,
the water took them. And she's like, the water took them. And I go, pero what if we ask these people? She goes, who is going to find your damn flip-flops? The ocean took them. And I go, pero vamos a preguntarle, because how do we know? Maybe they saw them. And I'm like, I don't know if they speak English. I don't know if they speak Spanish. They look like they were also there tourists. And I go up to the woman and I go, I don't know what language you speak, but I'm looking for flip-flops. And it was my cousin. It was who I was with. She's on the side going, oh my God, why didn't you just give up? Just give up. They're gone. And the woman goes, I saw them. And I go, where? She goes, someone put them in a pile down the beach. My flip-flops were there. Now, if I had decided from that moment that I should give up, that they're gone, I wouldn't have gotten it back. Now, that's a small thing, Peggy. But I've also gotten tuition paid for my master's degree. I've paid for my undergraduate degree, because I'm the first person to go, who makes a decision here, and how can I influence them? So ask the question is my number one thing to anyone. Okay?
Excellent. Wow. Ask. My mom used to always say that, ask and you shall receive.
Ask.
Abra la boca, no le dé pena. Ask.
Ask. It's a huge one. If you own a business, it's a huge one. If you are a customer and you're even at a store, or if you're at a car dealer, ask why. Ask, is that your best? Ask to understand. Sometimes understanding can get so many gains. So I would say that's my number one thing. It will be amazing. The
Number
things
two.
that you can get. Be strategic about what you do with the money that you earn.
They say it's not about how much you make, it's how much you keep.
It's how much you keep. We can get influenced in so many ways. Have fun. Enjoy yourself. Life is also short, so this is a very fine balance that we're walking here. But make sure that you're setting yourself up for the future. So I always say, please set future you to say thank you to yesterday you. So that would be my other one. And the last one is carry yourself with humility, but at the same time, show them what you've got.
That's a fine line. That's a balance. Carry yourself with humility, but be strong enough to be assertive and show them what you got. But yet keep that humbleness.
Keep the humbleness. Always be prepared. Always be prepared. You already know your stuff. Always know your stuff. When you know your stuff, people cannot argue with it. When you carry humility and you say, even if you don't know, hey, I'm an underdog. I've actually said, in that particular meeting, I said, I'm just an underdog trying to do my best. And who can't relate to an underdog?
Everyone loves the underdog.
Everybody has had to figure out a way to fight for what's theirs. So, double-edged.
Double-edged. Lourdes, thank you. You're an inspiration to many. You're, I can see you doing a lot with the youth, and we've talked about this. You love to give advice, young women. I'm excited to see what you do in the future. And if you guys are interested, this is a bestseller on Amazon.
It sure is.
Breaking the glass ceiling, Lourdes' story, my story, and 19 other women's story. I love having people like you on my podcast. Thank you, Lourdes, for coming to Sin Permiso.
Absolutely. I'm here. If anyone is interested in learning more, getting in touch, I always love to get out in the community, to talk to colleges, to just talk about the possibilities. The word possibilities gets me excited.
And always ask. Thank you guys for listening.